My son gave his dad a $30,000 automobile on Christmas Day, and he also gave me a napkin that had my mother's words scribbled on it. A week later, he called me in tears. "Don't do this, Mom." Everyone was surprised by what transpired next. I'll explain how it all began. I want to start by saying thank you for viewing Granny's Voice. For us, your support is crucial. Please click subscribe if you enjoy our stories. In the comments, let us know which city you're viewing from. We like hearing from you. We would like to welcome Pauline today. Canada's Brian. We appreciate you viewing our stories. Let me now explain what actually transpired. For 2 decades, I believed that being a good mother meant accepting everything. I always managed to get my son what he wanted. I gave him money when he needed it. I corrected him when he made blunders. This was love, I told myself. I am a school teacher by profession, and my name is Sarah. Tommy was raised primarily by me. Tommy's father departed when he was 8 years old. At the age of 15, Tommy's father returned to his life. I suddenly become cruel. Dad and parent turned into the amusing ones. Tommy began referring to me as the rule maker and his father as the cool parent. I persisted despite the pain. I was there for him on every birthday, at every school function, and whenever he needed assistance. His father arrived bearing lavish presents and lofty pledges. After that, he would vanish for weeks. But for some reason, I was always a villain. When I inquired about homework, Tommy would roll his eyes. When I established guidelines for remaining out late, he had matured. However, Tommy's entire face would light up when his father called. I had the feeling that I was losing my own child. I always had a difficult time on Christmas morning. Tommy spent some years with his father and neglected to give me a call. I was invited in previous years, such as this one, but I felt alienated. It was a text message invitation. Dad's house for Christmas dinner. 3:00 p.m. Bring dessert. Just directions, no enthusiasm, no kind words. Still, I went. Tommy used to claim that I wore the red sweater. Made me appear to be Santa's assistant. That joke used to make him laugh. He hardly looked now. At me, the air was chilly and cold, yet the house smelled of pine trees and turkey. Tommy held a little package containing car keys as he stood in the living room. They were all there already. His father's girlfriend, Lisa, a few neighbors, and even Lisa's adolescent daughter were all more welcoming than I was. Tommy said, "Dad," in an animated tone, "you've always been there for me when it mattered. You showed me how to be a man, so I wanted to give you something special." As if it were made of gold, he gave his father the box. The gleaming black vehicle keys within caused everyone to gasp. Tommy said, "It's a BMW, the one you've always desired." I purchased it yesterday after saving money. Hugs and applause erupted over the crowd. Everyone was bouncing up and having a good time. No one volunteered to grab me a coffee cup, so I sat silently on the couch and held it in both hands. I made myself smile. It had nothing to do with money. It wasn't about the car, even though I could have purchased 10 of those. It concerned what Tommy's true words were. He viewed me as nothing and his father as a hero. Then, for the first time in the day, he looked at me, he grinned and added, "Oh, I didn't forget about you, Mom." He threw a crumpled napkin across the table as if it were trash and said, "Here." I carefully opened it. The words, "Worst mom ever," were written in black marker. Everyone burst out laughing. I couldn't decide whether to laugh or cry as I gazed up. His pals were laughing as if it were the most hilarious joke they had ever heard. His father trembled his head but remained silent. Lisa made a show of checking her phone. Tommy was proud as he stood there with his arms folded. I placed a napkin in my pocket after folding it once and then twice. "Very creative," I murmured in a whisper. "Thanks," he said with a shrug. I wasn't laughing, though. "It's just a joke, Mom. Don't be so serious." For the remainder of the day, I kept quiet. I forgot about myself as I watched him serve everyone else. I was seated in that packed room with people who had formerly been my family. I felt invisible now. At that moment, I came to a significant realization. I was no longer being disregarded. I was getting wiped out. I didn't play any music on the way home. To think straight, I needed the silence. His flat, which he believed his father was paying for, came to mind. I reflected on the monthly tuition I paid for his college education. When he overspent, I reflected on the credit card bills I paid. He was unaware that I was responsible for everything. I wanted him to be proud, so I kept everything quiet. Himself. He turned my generosity against me, even though I wanted him to believe he was succeeding on his own. I pulled out the napkin and glanced at those awful words as I pulled into my driveway. Mom is the worst. Perhaps that's how he actually perceived me. Perhaps my tenderness, generosity, and desperation were too much for his affection. I glanced at the napkin for a while after placing it on my kitchen table. I muttered to myself, not anymore. That night, something inside of me altered. I would never longer plead for love. Not from him. Not from anybody. He insulted me after I had given him everything. I had some critical phone calls to make the next morning. My phone didn't make a sound for 7 days. The stillness was louder than ever before. No texts, no calls, not even a simple, "Thank you for coming to dinner." I didn't try to make my own calls to fill the void this time. I didn't text him to check on him when I was worried. I had performed that dance for far too long. I once thought that if I simply remained patient long enough, if I continued to help, give, and make sacrifices, he would eventually come to value me. However, love without a respect is merely gradual agony, and the pain was over for me. That first day, I spent it going through old papers and documents that I had hidden under his school trophies and newborn pictures. I located the lease for his apartment, the one that was paid for using my bank account yet had his name on it. His father had mentioned providing for them, but I was the one who had to pay the security deposit. Silently stepped in. I also located his vehicle's insurance documents. I made the monthly installments, but his dad claimed credit for another gift. None of this was known to Tommy. I ensured he wouldn't be aware. I wanted him to feel powerful and self-sufficient rather than as though he owed me anything. However, kindness had rendered me invisible, and independence had devolved into harshness. I called Robert, my lawyer, the following morning. Surprised, he said, "Sarah, I was surprised to hear from you during the holidays." "Okay," I said. Plans alter in silence. I was clear with him about what I needed. Beginning the following month, stop making payments on Tommy's flat. Using my policy, cancel his auto insurance. Take him off of the credit cards he used for emergencies. Everything would take place in silence. Just a withdrawal of assistance he was unaware existed. No drama. Robert took a while to respond. "Are you certain you want to take this action?" I took a while to respond. On my desk, I noticed a photo of Tommy at the age of 7. We were both sand-covered at the beach, giggling when I was his entire universe. In his father's stories, I was the enemy before. I finally said, purposefully in front of strangers, he embarrassed me. It's not the first time either. This is the final time I will permit it. Robert let out a sigh. I'll see to that. The days seemed odd after that call. Tea, quiet mornings, and melancholy recollections. Cleaning the house in the afternoons. Every Christmas dinner where I felt unwelcome comes to mind. I kept thinking he might give me a call. Perhaps he would notice. There was a change. Perhaps he would even apologize. However, nothing took place. Not until the 7th day. My phone rang when I was in my living room, reading a book. Unknown figure. Something urged me to answer, even though I nearly didn't. "Mom," he spoke in a trembling, terrified voice. I remained silent. "It's me, Mom. Tommy is here. Don't do this, please." In the distance, I could hear automobiles, perhaps the sound of his footsteps. He was crying, but it wasn't the same as when he was a child and wanted anything. This was really profound. Weeping. My car was refused when I attempted to pay my rent today. My car was towed since the insurance was canceled, and the landlord threatened to evict me if I didn't pay within 3 days. Still, I remained silent. "Please, Mom, I am aware that you did this. I am certain that was you. Simply speak with me. Tell me how this may be fixed." That was the time. Not the napkin, not Christmas, not even his pals laughing. He finally acknowledged what I had been all along at that point. Not merely a backup plan or wallet, but the someone who was always there for him. Being correct should have made me happy, but instead I felt empty. How about your father? Calmly, I asked. When you told him, what did he say? Tommy fell silent. It's not his problem, he said, that I must manage my own life. I exhaled a deep, weary breath. I whispered, I told you, the fun bits are when the man shows up. All other things have been supported by me. I understand, he muttered. I am aware that I made a mistake. I was merely attempting to be humorous. I didn't consider how it may hurt you. I spoke more sharply than I intended to, but you never know. You never once inquired about the amount of work I performed for you. And all of a sudden, I'm mom again now that you've lost everything. Now he was sobbing more. My voice remained the same, despite the pain in my heart. Ask your cool dad for assistance. Try to get him to fix it. Don't hang up, please. You are necessary to me. I gazed at the napkin that was still folded the way he had given it to me, resting on my kitchen table. I said, I needed you too, and I got this from you. I hung up the phone after that. That night, I didn't get any sleep. Not for a minute. My head was racing as I laid in bed, completely clothed. I heard his voice every time I closed my eyes. Please don't do this, Mom. I could still hear the Christmas Day laughing reverberating in my ears beneath his pleading. Like a terrible melody I would never forget. The gift, or even the hurtful remarks on the napkin weren't the point. It had to do with the way he handled me. Like if I were a toy he had saved from his youth, because he was sympathetic to me. It was no joke, that napkin. There was a message. I don't care about you anymore. But all of a sudden, now that his cozy existence was disintegrating, I was valuable again, now that he didn't have his car or apartment. He recalled who managed the back end. The odd thing is that when he called, I wasn't upset. Not at all. I was simply worn out. I'm sick of having to prove that I'm worthy of being loved by my own son. To keep something warm, I brewed coffee the following morning. I didn't consume it. I wondered how long it would be until he called again, as I stood by the window and watched the snow fall. It took very little time. He was making calls from his actual number by 10 a.m. Mom, he began hastily, as if he was worried I would end the call. Can we please meet somewhere? I'll come to you. Just don't hang up on me again. I didn't leave a message. I allowed the silence to grow until he spoke. His words were, I'm sorry. I promised that I didn't intend for it to get this far. I was attempting to amuse myself, and I was unaware of how vicious I was. You were unaware? Once more his voice broke, and I could hear how terrified he was. I had been sleeping on the couch of my friend Jake. There's nowhere else for me to go. Dad hasn't even given me a call to see how I'm doing. Just apologize because things are difficult. He contacted me once. He replied that solving my difficulties is not his responsibility. I can't afford to get my automobile out of the impound yard, so it remains there. I rested against, using both hands to hold the phone on my kitchen counter. It was there. I finally heard what I had been waiting for, but I felt exhausted and depressed rather than happy about it, considering that I now realized he didn't love me for who I was. I was only necessary when anything went wrong. I resembled a glass-enclosed fire extinguisher, utilized exclusively in dire situations. I said softly, you know, I hoped for years that you would call me Mom with affection. You wanted to talk to me, but not because you needed anything. Yes, I do. Desire to, he said hastily. I simply had no idea how. It was difficult for a long time because of all Dad said about you. I suppose I was unwilling to see the reality. How practical. He said, I know how it looks, but I promise this isn't just about the money and stuff. It's about you. Miss you. I want to make things right between us. His voice broke there, as if he wasn't sure if I would believe him, and for a brief moment I saw him. I said, you didn't want to see the truth until you lost your apartment and your car. The young man who hugged me at his high school graduation and declared that I was the best mother in the world. The little boy who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. The teenager who called me when he got his first job. The young man who had spent years pushing me away and now wanted me back. I said carefully, I'm not stopping you from making things right. You're just going to have to do it without my money saving you. What does that mean? It means, I said, that you're going to have to find a job and pay your own rent. You're going to have to learn what it's like to take care of yourself. So this is punishment. No, I said that this is called having boundaries. He exhaled sharply, as if someone had punched him in the stomach. I don't have anyone else to help me, he said. Maybe you should think about why that is. The phone fell silent. He didn't argue with me or become irate. Instead, he simply went silent. I'll figure out myself, he whispered at the end. Thanks for. Before I could respond, he hung up on me. I remained motionless for a while. My legs felt heavy. The coffee had grown cold, and I realized that I had locked the door between us instead of just closing it. It wasn't easy. I wanted to run after him to make things better, as I always did. But I also knew that nothing would change and that he would return to treating his dad like a hero the moment his bank account was empty. Had money once more. He would tell himself that this was just another instance of my cruelty, not the end of my heartbreak. So I stood there strong and motionless, allowing the pain to solidify in my chest like cement. That night, my friend Janet, a teacher who also understood family drama, came over and saw something different about me before I even spoke. You okay, Sarah? I nodded, but I told her the truth. No, I replied, but I'm doing what I have to do, she continued, tilting her head. The first angry call didn't come. I was thinking, tough love. No, I said just love without the lies. You're not the bad guy, Sarah, she said quietly, because sometimes being a good parent means being the villain in your kid's story. Perhaps that was true. Perhaps I was finally taking on the role he had given me. The worst mom ever. But if that's what it took to make him grow up, to finally see me as more than a piggy bank in an apron. I don't know why I answered the phone when it rang, but I think it was because I wanted to know that Tommy still had the same anger after all these years, even though it was always directed at me. What the hell did you do? He snapped. No hello, no politeness. Tommy's a mess. He's sleeping on friends' couches. He can't pay his rent. And he told me you canceled his car insurance. Tommy had come from his dad, sharp and mean, on time. I could hear the whine in his voice, the same bitter tone he used in every argument we ever had. No, I said calmly. I did it because he's been treating me like garbage for years, and I finally stopped allowing it. And that car insurance was through my policy. He didn't own anything. A plate. It's not his apartment. It's mine legally. He's upset with you, so you're punishing him. It's really wealthy. You never showed up for. Sarah, the emotional things. You simply threw money at issues and thought it would buy you love. I didn't speak louder. I didn't have to. And you used every opportunity to poison him against me. I'm cold and heartless, you told him. However, when your credit was too poor, guess who covered the cost of his apartment? Can you guess who ensured he had transportation and food? I wanted him to feel strong and self-sufficient. So I did it all in silence. I didn't want to be your rival. I only wanted him to be content. A pause occurred. There was silence, except the sound of someone struggling to come up with the next sentence. He replied, You always thought money solved everything. But his voice had become softer. Additionally, you ensured that he never saw what I truly handed him. He ended the call. I began seeing posts on social media a few hours later. Tommy's pals were exchanging ambiguous signals. Some people who profess to adore you are toxic in reality. Although no names were given, everyone in our little community was aware of what was going on. My phone began receiving messages in a matter of minutes. Is everything going okay for Tommy? I've heard some drama in the family. That Christmas thing was really harsh, but that's none of my concern. Posts from his college pals suddenly began to surface. I recalled girls lending Tommy additional cash during group outings. I would never talk to my mother again if she did this to me. I found it amusing. Don't talk to me, unless he was in need of anything. He hardly ever spoke to me. None of it got a response from me. I didn't give an explanation or justify myself, yet something inside of me began to unravel. It's a sort of tiredness that comes when you realize that no one else understands the battle you're fighting, not remorse or guilt. I had funded a tale in which I was the antagonist. Everyone could now watch from the front row. Emma, my niece, stopped by that weekend. She is Tommy's age, intelligent, trustworthy, and unafraid to express her opinions. She entered with a worried expression and 2 mugs of hot chocolate. She settled into my recliner and remarked, "He's really milking this drama," without being invited. Posted a video yesterday crying about being abandoned by a selfish parent. Had some sad music and everything. I didn't react, just sipped the hot chocolate. But you know what Emma said? He was criticized in half of the remarks. Screenshots of his previous social media posts, in which he boasted about having 2 parents who lavish him with attention, were shared. People quickly fit the pieces together. That caught me off guard. I was actually defended. Not everyone, Emma said. However, enough to jolt him. This morning, he removed the video. Aunt Sarah, he's coming apart. But I don't blame you, really. His treatment of that handkerchief was quite terrible. Tommy used to hang his Christmas stockings on my fireplace when he still wanted to spend the holidays here, and I gazed at it. I was having trouble untying a knot in my chest. I mainly spoke to myself and I stated, "I didn't want to destroy his life." "You didn't," Emma firmly said. "You simply..." Later that night, I went to my sister's house for a family barbecue. I had committed to going weeks ago and didn't want to cancel and give people more reasons to talk about me. But as soon as I walked in, I sensed that everyone was watching me and waiting for the villain to say something dramatic. "Sarah," my cousin Mike said, holding a beer, "would you mind if I asked what actually happened with Tommy?" Everyone was talking about it. I didn't want to do this. Not here. Not in court. As I looked around at everyone's faces, I said, "He gave me a napkin that said, 'Worst mom ever.'" Then he gave his dad a $30,000 car, and that's exactly what happened. The backyard fell silent. Even the kids stopped playing, and I waited for silence to set before adding, "So I stopped paying for his life. Let him see what life is like without the mother he says he despises." A clap began, followed by another. It's about time someone in this family stood up for themselves. I could tell by their faces that not everyone agreed, but for the first time in years, I didn't feel crazy. I felt understood. On the drive home, I didn't cry or celebrate. Instead, I just felt the weight of everything that had happened. The years I tried to be perfect. The love I freely offered. The silence I endured when he chose his dad over me. Sister, surprisingly enough, said, "You did what needed to be done." Tommy played his part like he was acting in a movie, posting a series of childhood photos, ones I hadn't seen in years, along with a lengthy story that made him seem like the forgotten, emotionally starved son of a mother. He hadn't been a perfect mother, but I hadn't given up. I had never given up, and I had finally stopped pleading for scraps of affection. By the next week, it wasn't just whispers among family or mutters among friends. It had turned into a show. It was a manipulative, dishonest, and flawlessly written post that received thousands of likes and hundreds of comments within hours, with strangers expressing sympathy and former classmates tagging each other. He didn't use my name directly, but it didn't take much detective work to figure out who he was talking about. He talked about how money doesn't make a mother, how he'd been thrown away for speaking his truth, and how he was starting over from nothing after a lifetime of walking on eggshells around me. I sat at my kitchen table watching the numbers rise, and even some online influencers share it with captions like, "Healing means cutting toxic people out, even family." My name wasn't mentioned, but I had become the week's cautionary tale in our small town, so I didn't reply. Not yet. But then came the part that really hurt me. Not the post itself, but the phone call from my principal the following morning. "Sarah," she said carefully, "we have a situation." My private humiliation was now leaking into my professional world, where I had built my reputation through 20 years of dedicated teaching. "I'll handle it," I said firmly, and I did. I sent an email to all staff members about professionalism, social media boundaries, and keeping personal matters private. I never mentioned Tommy by name, but everyone understood. Teachers shared Tommy's post on her story, and the school board saw it. Didn't think it could get worse until I bumped into his dad in the grocery store that Saturday. In first, I didn't recognize him because he seemed older and more worn out, but as soon as he spotted me, his face hardened and he came straight for me. "Sarah," he began with a fake smile, "funny seeing you here. I thought you would be hiding at home." I calmly glanced at him and put a bag of apples in my basket. Not hiding, just buying groceries. He chuckled, but it wasn't a joyful laugh. And you? Yes. Where are you staying? That caught him off guard. His fake smile vanished. She told me you vanished the minute things got complicated. He scoffed. He's 25, Sarah. Not a little kid. If he can't handle a few problems, maybe he's not as mature as he thinks. You really messed up Tommy's life, he said. He's staying with different friends every few days. He claims he's never seen you act this cold. I'm not his mother, he said. No, I agreed. But you allowed him to call you the good parent. You bought his loyalty with promises you couldn't keep. You wanted the title without the responsibility. His face turned red. You're just bitter because, although you were quick to call me a selfish mother, you bailed faster than anyone when he truly needed help. We stood there, two people in the middle of the produce section, and the truth of our 20-year triangle was finally revealed for what it was. Not love, not family, just a performance. He turned without saying anything more, pushed his car away as if he hadn't just been completely exposed. Later that night, I received a voicemail from Tommy, who didn't call me directly but instead left his words on my answering machine like throwing a. I'm sorry if I crossed the line. I saw that your work got involved. I didn't mean for it to blow up like that. I just needed people to understand my side. I didn't think it would affect your job. I just felt so alone, and I wanted people to see what I was going through. I'm sorry if I crossed the line. Only a small piece of regret, not an apology for the napkin, not a request to come home, just a kind of sadness for what we used to be. My sister texted me, thinking of you. You did what every parent wants to do, but is too scared to try. You stood up for yourself. I stared at the blank piece of paper that night, not writing anything down, just letting the weight of everything sink in. The betrayal, the public humiliation, the cold reality that no matter how much I loved him, he would always choose a version of our story that made him feel better. The letter came on a Thursday morning, tucked inside a white envelope, with my name written in Tommy's meticulous handwriting, the same handwriting I used to see on thank you cards for birthday presents and Mother's Day gifts from when he was little, before we learned how to hurt each other with grown-up cruelty. Perhaps I wasn't the monster he painted me as. Perhaps I was simply the first person in his life to stop enabling his selfishness. I didn't open it for a long time. Mom, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know if I deserve to ask you to. I put it on my coffee table next to my morning newspaper, touched it once or twice as if it might sting, and then left. I wasn't afraid of what was inside, but rather of how it might make me feel. I'm writing this because it feels worse to remain silent than to face your anger, and because, for the first time in my adult life, I'm beginning to understand how. I think I held on to Dad because he felt easy and simple, didn't carry any baggage, and didn't remind me of all the broken pieces. But you never left. You showed up quietly and consistently, and I used that against you. I believed you wouldn't fight back, so I made you the safe target because I thought you'd never fight back. I was angry for a long time, not just at you, but at everything. The divorce, moving houses, the way Dad talked about you like you were cold and selfish. It wasn't long, maybe half a page, and it contained simple, tired, real words without dramatic begging or promises to change overnight. And somehow, that hit me harder than all the crying phone calls or public drama. It was the kind of letter you write when you're finally sitting alone with yourself in a quiet room, without an audience to perform for. When you finally did, I realized I'd pushed you past something I didn't understand. I'm not asking for anything back. I just wanted you to know I see you now. That weekend, I drove by his new place, which was easy to find, a small studio apartment above a pizza shop downtown with metal stairs and faded paint on the door. I didn't knock or go inside, so I just parked across the street. I folded it back up and put it in the drawer where I kept old pictures and Mother's Day cards from when he was little. I didn't do this because I was ready to unlock that door again or because I completely forgave him, but because I thought he meant it. And perhaps that was enough for now. He came out around lunchtime, backpack over his shoulder, and I watched him for a while like some depressed movie character. He appeared thinner and more exhausted, but not broken, and there was something different about the way he walked. Head up, shoulders back, eyes focused ahead. He crossed the street without me noticing and vanished into a small office building while I left a small envelope in his mailbox instead of following him. Inside, I found a single piece of paper with, "I was quiet like I always was. Teddy." At home, I made dinner for one and turned on the TV to fill the silence. I wasn't lonely, not in the way I used to be. I missed him, yes, but I didn't ache for his approval anymore. Somewhere between that napkin and this letter, something changed inside me. I had mourned the version of him I tried so hard to hold. Just a few words. "Proud of you for trying. Keep going, Mom." No signature needed. No money. No offer to fix everything, just recognition. I had no intention of mending the rift between us. That was no longer my responsibility. I had taught him how to fall and, more importantly, how to get back up. So whether he returned to me or not, I had done what I had to do, not for retribution, but for truth. Sometimes being a mother means stepping away, not out of spite, but out of love so strong that it will never be taken for granted again. And now I was meeting the version of him that he might actually become. It was still folded neatly in the kitchen drawer where I kept it all this time, and the cruel words were still as sharp as ever. "Worst mom ever." However, it no longer cut the same way, and now it felt like evidence that I had finally made a stand, that I had demanded to be seen as a person who deserved basic respect rather than as a safety net or backup plan. I put it back in the drawer and slowly closed it. Not all stories end with hugs and joyful reunions. Some end with understanding, silence, and a boundary. Held firm. And that's okay. I had done enough. I had been enough. And for the first time in years, that truth was finally crystal clear. Not all stories end with reconciliation, but sometimes the only way to heal yourself and the people you love most is to hold your boundaries. What would you have done if you were in my position? Please leave a comment and let me know if I was correct or if I went too far. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe too. Until next time, this is Granny's voice signing. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you soon for our next heartfelt story. Sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to step back and let someone learn to stand on their own 2 feet. Granny's voice for more powerful real-life family stories that will stay with you long after the video ends.